Good morning and good evening. I'm glad to say we have participants in several time zones. We're covering day and night right now. So thanks for joining us for this webinar on why Panama and all about its residency programs. It's interesting to see that even with the limitations and mobility in restrictions that we're living during this time of pandemic, there is interest from people who want to have an alternative or a plan B regarding their current residency and citizenship status. As you will see during this presentation, Panama offers multiple advantages as a country for a second residency or even to move permanently and retire, such as our geographic location, air and digital connectivity, political stability, security, economic growth, and great ecological diversity that makes it a world-class destination. Even during these hard times, last week, 5 multinational companies confirmed the establishment of their headquarters in Panama. Panama is also within the Forbes magazine 2020 ranking of 25 best countries to retire. Please feel free to ask any questions at any point during this presentation by using the Q&A section in the bottom part of the screen. Also, at the end of this presentation, you will receive a brief survey where you will be able to share your feedback with us. Your opinion is very valuable and of great help for us as it provides us with guidance on your topics of interest for future webinars. We want to make sure that our webinars are of great value to you. Now we can start with Maite. Good morning, Maite. Maite is our private client services manager. Maite has more than 20 years of experience in the financial sector and will talk to you about the services we offer from this division. Karina Sanin, our commercial VP, will talk about residency programs in Panama. I hope you find this presentation useful, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Isabel. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank each of you for joining us today. My name is Maite Diaz and I am the manager of the Private Client Services Division at OMC Group. For us as an international company with a global presence, it is an honor to be able to talk to you about Panama today. Many of you already know a little about our beautiful country. However, Panama is much more than a tourist destination and through the years has become one of the best countries to invest worldwide. So I'm going to start by telling you about our group, and then Karina Sanin, our commercial vice president, will tell you some more of the benefits of investing in Panama and some of the immigration alternatives of greatest interest to investors like you. Well, OMC Group is an industry-leading company with over 65 years of experience. As I mentioned before, we are a global company and we work hand in hand with our clients to help them protect their assets and find the necessary solutions for an effective estate planning. We have offices in Dubai, Hong Kong, Geneva, Uruguay, and our main headquarters located in Panama. In this way, through all these offices, our clients achieve personalized attention in their own time zone. As you can see here, at OMC Group, we can offer a wide range of products and services. We are leaders in the corporate services industry. We incorporate more and manage companies in more than 40 jurisdictions. And we have our own licenses in Panama, Bahamas, Belize, BVI, Anguilla, Hong Kong, Seychelles, and Nevis, among others. In addition, through our trust team, OMC Group registers and manages trusts in Panama, BVI, New Zealand, Costa Rica, Nevis, and the United States. OMC can help our clients with all their relocation issues in Panama. and with all the logistics involved in their investments in the country. For example, the incorporation of a company to acquire a property. In this process, as a matter of fact, our real estate brokers can advise you on everything related to the search and acquisition of a real estate for your investments. We can also help you with the necessary immigration permits and procedures for those who are interested in having a primary or a secondary residence in Panama. At OMC Group, we understand the importance of an effective administration. So we have all the tools to support our clients in the management of their companies, including accounting services, opening of bank accounts, the necessary business facilities such as the physical address and administrative resources, compliance services and trademark registrations, among others. Through our private client services division, we help our clients and their families organize and structure their wealth through the advisory on assets protection and estate planning. And we work hand in hand with their advisors and their family offices. We help them manage their wealth through services such as investment portfolio advisory and the analysis and consolidation of their assets in one single account statement. And we also help them in their estate and succession planning through trusts, private interest foundations, family governance, corporate governance, and others. Now I'm going to leave you with our Commercial Vice President, Karina Sanin. Hello, Karina, how are you?
Hi, Maite, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining us. I am truly delighted to have the opportunity to speak to all of you today about Panama. Those of you that I've met can probably attest to how passionate I am about my country, and I hope that by the end of this webinar, you will be able to say, well, with good reason. So let's talk a little bit about Panama. You know, I spend most of my time talking to clients around the globe, and many of them ask me, why Panama? Why not Costa Rica? Why not Miami, for example? So I have actually spent a lot of time thinking about this and trying to be as objective as possible, which is not an easy task. I have to say Panama's advantages are countless. In addition to the beauty of our country, I will spend some time walking you through some of the key advantages of investing in our country. And in the end, you know, every family has their own unique needs, but I can assure you that Panama can truly exceed expectations. So let's talk first about our economy. Panama has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Our average annual growth rate has been close to 5% over the past 5 years. Panama has a stable dollarized economy, so we do not have currency fluctuation issues as our neighbor countries. And this makes investing in and from Panama very easy. Our dollarized economy also provides peace of mind for families that are looking to preserve wealth for generations, because of course they don't have to worry about currency fluctuations as our neighboring countries. Our economy is sustained mainly by a strong services sector, which accounts for 3/4 of our GDP. And these services include, of course, the operating of the canal, the Panama Canal, which most of you are probably familiar with, the management of all of our free zones, which I will mention later, container ports, flagship and company registration, as Maite mentioned, and of course, tourism. Banking is also an important economic sector that has been key in our growth. We have a world-class financial center with more than 85 banks, and these banks are under the supervision of the Panamanian Banking Superintendency, which was created in 1998 following the norms and principles of the Basel Committee, which establishes, of course, banking policies and practices worldwide. So we follow worldwide standards. Next, let's talk a little bit about our political stability. Our government is democratic, it's stable. We've had a stable democracy since 1994, and we elect our presidents by popular vote every 5 years. Our president is both the head of state and the head of government, but the executive power is exercised by the president and the legislative power is vested in the National Assembly. Personal security, quality of life are key drivers for people that are looking to relocate to Panama. Panama is a very safe country with unparalleled quality of life. It's #1 in Central America and #4 in Latin America. So let's talk a little bit about medical tourism. Medical tourism is a new concept, for me at least. It's a new concept, and it's one that's gained strength in Panama over the past few years. I remember hearing about medical tourism in Mexico and in other countries, but tourism for medicine is something that's relatively new, at least for me. We have Pacifica Salud Hospital, which was the first hospital 20 years ago in Latin America and the Caribbean to be affiliated with Johns Hopkins Medical International. And here we have world-class doctors, surgeons, specialists in all areas that provide superior medical solutions at very affordable prices. And this is very important because the care that you can get here can be compared to what a patient would receive in the United States or in Europe, but the prices are much more affordable here in Panama. Panama is also a great culinary destination. We have a very diverse cuisine that guarantees a true gastronomic experience. I like to cook and I like to eat, so I could probably go into excruciating detail on how our cuisine developed from the arrival of the Spaniards to the influence from the Chinese, the Greeks, Americans, amongst others. It's a true melting pot of flavors, and this really reflects our multicultural nation. Now let's talk a little bit about our territorial income regime. And this is something that many clients usually have questions about. As many of you may know, Panama has a territorial tax system. And this means that it exempts all income earned outside Panama. This zero taxation policy of foreign income applies to resident individuals residing in Panama, as well as Panamanian companies. Our connectivity and logistics hub. Panama is definitely a logistic hub, and it connects the world by land, by sea, and by air. The Panama Canal is a true world marvel and a source of pride for our country. It serves over 140 maritime routes, 1,700 ports, and 160 countries. We have one of the most active ports in Latin America, and the expansion of the Panama Canal, which was completed a few years ago, has doubled the transit capacity of the canal. We are definitely in a privileged geographic location, smack in the middle of North and South America, and our airport has become known as the hub of the Americas. Most major airlines fly to and from Panama, and we offer direct flights throughout the Americas and to many countries in Europe. So let's talk a little bit now about our infrastructure. Here you can see some statistics on how we rank as a country in terms of key infrastructure metrics. We're #1 in terms of connectivity. As I mentioned, we're the best connected country in Latin America, in great part thanks to the hub of the Americas, our airport. We're #3 in Latin America on road and highway quality. This is very important, and if you've traveled throughout Latin America, you can attest to the road conditions in many countries. So we pride ourselves in being #3 in Latin America in road and highway quality. We're #5 in the world in terms of ports, #6 worldwide in terms of airport quality, and #8 worldwide on mobile phone contracts. Last but not least, let's talk about ecological tourism. As I mentioned earlier, Panama's location is truly privileged. There are only a handful of locations in the world where you can travel 1 hour and experience pristine beaches and incredible rainforests. But then again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So here you can see 2 of Panama's incredible ecological sites, San Blas Islands in the Caribbean and the Chorrillo waterfalls in Veraguas province. Veraguas literally translates into to see water. The beauty of Panama is immeasurable. We have over 1,700 miles of combined coastlines from the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. We have one of the most unique rainforests in the world. We have over 700 species of animals in Panama, with over 150 unique species that are exclusively found in our country. In addition, we're a great bird watching destination. We host over 1,000 birds every year. And I remember growing up, my parents were always showing me different bird species, and I often rolled my eyes, not really understanding how special they are and how people travel incredible distances just for the pleasure of seeing them for a few minutes. I think you get the idea. From humpback whales to panthers to quetzals, Panama has one of the most richest faunas and floras in the world. I hope this has given you a good sense of the many benefits of Panama as a country. I've spent some time discussing the why part, so now let's move into the how. But before I do, why don't we do a quick poll to see, out of the reasons that I've described, why would you consider moving to Panama as a new or secondary place of residence? Let's launch the poll and see how the results come out. I'll give you a few minutes. Let's see. I see responses coming in. Give you a few more seconds. Okay, let's see the results. Interesting, but not surprising. The territorial tax regime followed very closely by, oh, actually, there's quite a big gap, but followed by safety and quality of life. Very interesting. Okay, so then let's go into the residency programs that we have in Panama, but I think that we should spend a few minutes addressing the huge elephant in the room. You know, we are in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. Why are we discussing this now? What is the use of this information at this point in time? And it's a really good question. I think, as Isabel mentioned, quite simply put, there's no better way or time to plan than now. And I think that this COVID-19 pandemic has brought on unprecedented uncertainty. We have seen families face very hard decisions in the past few weeks. Planning has a whole new different meaning. We're seeing family disputes over inheritance issues. We're seeing labor lawsuits. We're seeing possible bankruptcies, devaluations, illnesses, death. And honestly, in a whirlwind of uncertainty, we need to focus on the things that we can control. And planning for the future is one of them. And there is no better time to plan than now. So let's move into the residency programs that we will be covering today. I will cover the Friendly Nations Visa, the Panama-Italy Treaty, the Pensioner-Retiree Visa, Economic Solvency, and there are 3 types of programs: the Fixed Term Deposit, the Real Estate Investment, and the Mixed Investment, and the Retired Renter or Secondary Passport program. There are several other residency and visa programs available in Panama, such as the Professional Visa, the Student Visa, but we will focus on these that I mentioned today because I think that these will be the most commonly used by investors like you and by some of your clients. Okay, so let's start with the Friendly Nations Visa. This is one of the easiest and fastest ways to migrate to Panama. Citizens from over 50 countries with economic and professional ties to Panama can apply for permanent residence to the country. We will take a look at the list of countries in the next slide, but the requirements are very simple. You need to be a citizen of any of these 50 countries considered friendly nations to Panama. You have to have some sort of economic or professional tie to Panama. And this can be achieved, for example, having a duly incorporated company in Panama, and as Maite mentioned, we can help you with that. And you need to own at least 50% of the shares in these companies. Or you must have some sort of employment offer letter in Panama that will also prove your ties to the country. You must have a bank account with a total or a minimum balance of $5,000 US. Of course, these are not the only requirements. You may be asked to provide a legalized police record, an affidavit, photographs, etc. But this is standard and we can provide all the detailed information in follow-up to this session. The main type of visa, the main benefit of this type of visa is that it will grant you immediate permanent residence in Panama. It also allows you to include your relatives and your dependents. The process is very fast. It usually takes around 4 months, and it's the fastest route to a Panamanian ID. Interesting also, and in contrast to other residency programs that I've seen, Panama does not require you to stay in the country for the duration of the process or after obtaining the residence. However, we do suggest that you visit Panama at least once every 2 years. So let's take a look at the list of friendly nations. And as you can see, it's quite extensive. It's over 50 countries, and I can actually see many of the countries represented in today's attendee list. So I'm hoping that this list will be news and interesting to you. Let's talk about the Panama-Italy Treaty, which is one of a kind. The requirements and benefits are very similar to what I just described for friendly nations, but one could argue that this treaty was one of the first formal residency programs in Panama. It dates back to 1966. And as I mentioned, it's very similar to the friendly nations visa process. It's exclusive to Italian nationals, but the process is very similar. You need to be of Italian nationality. You have to have economic and professional ties to Panama. You must have a bank account with a minimum balance of $5,000. And the benefits, it grants immediate permanent residence. You can include relatives, fast process, 4 months or so, very fast route to the Panamanian ID. And there are no requirements to stay in the country once the process is started. Okay, moving on, we'll talk a little bit about the permanent residence for retiree pensioners. Panama, as Isabel mentioned earlier, has become a very popular destination for retirees and pensioners with good reason. It's actually one of the preferred destinations in Latin America for retirement. One of the most recent studies by International Living ranked Panama in the first place of countries to retire in Latin America, and it highlighted Panama as a country to live your retirement without worries. So what exactly is a retirement visa? It's a program designed for people who receive a retirement or pension for a lifetime from a foreign government, an international organization, or a private company. The main requirement is that you receive a retirement or pension whose monthly income is $1,000 minimum for life. You must have a bank account at a local bank with a minimum of $5,000, not different from what I mentioned earlier, but these do not need to remain in deposit. The client may dispose of these funds at any point in time. In terms of benefits, and this is really interesting, in addition to those mentioned already in the previous programs, retirees are granted the same benefits that Panamanian retired people are granted. So basically, you will get up to 25% discounts in medical consultations, hospitals, utility bills, airline tickets, restaurants, hotel stays, amongst others. It's important to note that the 3 residency programs that I've listed so far, so the Friendly Nations program, the Panama-Italy Treaty, and the retiree visa, are the only programs that will grant you an immediate permanent residence in the country. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and how it contrasts from the other programs in the next few slides. Okay, so let us go into the investor programs, which are designed to offer foreign investors the opportunity to obtain legal residence in Panama. Currently, this visa offers 3 investment alternatives to qualify. The first is residence by economic solvency. Here, the main requirement is that you invest a minimum of $300,000 in a 3-year certificate of deposit at any bank in Panama. The applicant needs to invest an additional $2,000 for each dependent, and this is the same for all the programs. And it's important to note that the Panama Bank time deposit account must be in the name of the primary applicant. So this means it cannot be in the name of a Panama corporation or a Panama foundation or a trust. Interest earned from the Panama bank time deposit will be deposited monthly into a saving account at the Panamanian bank that you designate. And the interest income generated by this account is not taxed by the Panamanian government. So this is important to note as well. The second option is by investing in real estate. And this is actually quite a popular option these days with the development of this sector in Panama. And this option requires the investment of a minimum, again, of $300,000 in a property in Panama, and mortgages are excluded. If the applicant has dependents, again, you need to add $2,000 for each dependent, as described in the previous scenario. And it's important to note here that the real estate property can be either owned directly by the applicant or through a Panama private interest foundation, as long as the primary applicant is either the founder or a beneficiary of the foundation, but it may not be held under a trust or a corporation. The third option is the mixed investment, which, as you probably guessed, combines the two options that I just described. That is that you can combine the investment in a certificate of deposit for a period of 3 years in a bank in Panama with a real estate investment. The important thing to note here is that the sum of these two must reach the minimum figure of $300,000. In contrast to the Friendly Nations visa, the Panama-Italy Treaty, the retired or pension visa, the investor program does not grant you immediate permanent residence. It grants you a provisional residence of 2 years, after which you can file for permanent residence. So that's the important note that I mentioned earlier that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the retired rentier program. This visa is of great interest to clients who want to opt for a second passport quickly. And through this program, Panama grants a special passport and a resident permit to applicants who have been retired of their work activities and established a time deposit at a state local bank, provided that this deposit produces a minimum of $850 per month in interest. So in other words, the applicant will have to make a fixed term investment in a Panamanian state bank, usually the Banco Nacional of Panama or National Bank of Panama, for the total amount of approximately $372,000 US for a period of 5 years. And this will generate the interest necessary to be eligible for this visa. As in the previous two scenarios, if you have a dependent or many dependents, the applicant must add $2,000 for each dependent to the fixed term deposit. And the main advantage is that through this program, you can obtain an electronic passport valid for 5 years. You can obtain a temporary residence card valid for 5 years, which can be renewed every 5 years. And it's important to mention that there are countries like the United States that will still require Panama to have a visa to enter this country. So in that case, you need to apply for the visa, but Panama has an extensive list of countries where you do not require a visa. So that's one of the main drivers for obtaining the Panamanian passport. It's also important to note that most of the programs that I've described today are routes to citizenship in Panama, but the process is not automatic and will depend on the chosen program, the nationalities of the people involved, and the circumstances. And it's interesting that Panama is one of a few countries that will issue a passport to non-nationals. So in Panama, citizenship does not equal a passport, and this is very unique to our country. Before I let you go, I want to take a few minutes to briefly cover an issue that arises frequently when we discuss residence and nationalities, which is tax residence. So let me launch the second poll of the day. Do you consider that obtaining residence in Panama makes you a tax resident in Panama? Yes or no? I'll give you a quick minute to vote and then I'll go over the results. See? Interesting. I'll give you a few more seconds. Let's see. So 36% of you think that it does, and 64% of you think that it does not. So I will share with you the answer. The correct answer is no, it does not. So what exactly is tax residence? Tax residency in Panama is a completely separate process from the permanent or provisional residence. In Panama, tax residence is an official document that's issued by our Internal Revenue Office, the DGI, which certifies that a person or a company is a tax resident in Panama for a financial period, for any given financial period. Then we have the following question: why would you change your tax residence? And in truth, there are many reasons why a person or a corporation may wish to change their tax residency, whether they're located in Latin America or in Asia or in Europe. Obtaining a fiscal residence in Panama may be a solution to many problems related to businesses and investments in your countries. For example, harsh tax regulations, corruption of state officials, currency controls, etc. But we'll leave this for another webinar, as it is quite an extensive topic. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. We now have some time for questions. And if you do not want to make them now, you can send us an email and we'll be happy to address your questions and follow up to this webinar. But let's see, Isabel, do we have any questions?
Yes, Karina, we actually have some interesting questions coming up. So
okay.
Let's start with the first one, for which I believe you already answered half of it. But here we go. How can I obtain the Panamanian nationality or a passport as an investor? You talked already about the passport as an investor. So let's go for with the first part.
Sure. So yes, to obtain the Panamanian nationality, it is necessary to file a separate process, which is the process of naturalization, to become a permanent citizen or a citizen of Panama. And this process can be filed 5 or 3 years, depending on the circumstance and the nationality, after the permanent residence is obtained. So this will, of course, depend on the program that you choose. And as I mentioned, with regards to the second passport, the fundamental requirement is that you have the monthly income of 850 in interests, and it will give you the residence for 5 years.
Thank you, Karina. We have another one. They're asking about how about Argentinian residents? And really, Argentinians, Argentina is part of the Friendly Nations Treaty. So Argentinian residents may apply for the Friendly Nations visa, and then they can enjoy the benefits of this simple and straightforward process of this program.
Exactly.
So that's an easy one for that client. And yes, it's very practical, as Karina explained a little bit earlier. We have another question. How many times must I travel to Panama during the process of obtaining my residency?
That's a really good question, and it's actually different from what I've seen in other programs around the world. We suggest 2 trips. The first trip would last approximately 2 weeks or so, 10 to 15 business days, to achieve the banking account opening, the pre-registration and immigration, and to file for the visa. We advise our clients to send us all of the requirements and legalizations in advance, so we can start working on the process before they arrive to Panama. And then the second trip should be made once the resolution is issued. And this trip can be a lot shorter, probably 3 to 5 business days is enough to complete the process. So with 2 trips, we should be able to cover it. One at the beginning and one once the resolution is passed.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Okay, we have another one that's related to that question, but it has a separate part as well. We have to actually come in the country in regards to complete the formalities of real estate investment. What about the evaluation report for such real estate? How can we be sure this property really worth so much? And how about buying in jointly? For this, I can say we have several companies in Panama that they provide us appraisals and that are accepted by banks to provide financing. So you should always go with an approved company that provides appraisals that are approved by banks. That's the main security you can have in terms of being confident that that appraisal is trustworthy. And also I can say that at this time, given the situation of the pandemic and the economic crisis, it's a very good moment because real estate property values have decreased quite a bit due to the situation.
And I think it's important to know that we can actually help you as well with that process. So if you are interested, let us know and we can send you some information. We can help you with the end-to-end process.
Definitely, we can definitely help you finding that real estate property. We have another one interesting here, Karina. Which relatives qualify to be included in the same process as dependents?
So yes, another very good question. Usually a husband, a wife, children up to 18 years old, or up to 25 if they can prove that they are studying in Panama and it can be verified. Applicants' parents can also be included, and family members with disabilities. Of course, all the documents need to be certified and confirmed via certificate of birth, marriage certificate, and certified in the applicant's country of origin. But those are the main dependents that can be eligible to apply with the main applicant.
Okay, thank you. We have another one related to the tax residency. You already mentioned that during the presentation, but she says, sorry, I missed this. Am I a tax resident if I immigrate to Panama?
No, no. The tax residence is a completely different process. It has different criteria. Actually, in the case of a person, the individual actually needs to stay in Panama for a period of 183 days consecutive or alternate during a fiscal year to be eligible to apply for fiscal residence in Panama. So it's a completely different process from the immigration process.
Okay. We have one here. If I do not stay in Panama for a certain period of time, do I lose my residence?
Good question. No. In Panama, there is no legal provision to remain in the country for a certain period of time. Our suggestion, again, is that 2 consecutive years do not pass without visiting the country. But the quick answer to that question is no. You do not need to stay in Panama for a certain period of time. And yeah, you don't lose your residence for not being physically in Panama, unless you were talking about the tax residency, which is a completely different story.
Okay, so a person's asking, what's the criteria and timing for granting tax residency, a tax residency certificate? For this, I can say that different criteria apply to obtain the tax residency. For example, in the case of a natural person, the individual must stay in Panama for a period of at least 183 days during the year. They can be consecutive or they can be alternate. It doesn't have to be all consecutive. During a fiscal period, during the same fiscal period, it's when these 183 days are counted from. They must also be able to prove that his or her center of vital interest is in the country. This means that they have a residence, they have a property, they have utility bills, etc. We have another one here, Karina. I want to know if I settle in Panama through any visa, if I take my liquid assets and deposit them in a bank in Panama, if I should pay taxes on those assets. That's an interesting one.
Yes, for sure. The short answer is no. For income obtained as a result of commercial activities carried out abroad, no taxes paid in Panama. Nor should you pay tax on that capital if it's deposited in an account at a local bank. So the answer is no.
Okay. Okay, please provide an overview of the income tax rate and the property tax in Panama.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, and it's a good one that comes up often, our income tax system is based on the territoriality principle. So we have a territorial taxation system, and basically only income generated or produced within the territory of Panama is subject to taxes. So for income tax, those who earn between $11,000 and $50,000 per year would pay 15%. So 15% would be their tax rate, and then those who earn 50,000 and above will pay 25% rate. Real estate taxes are calculated according to the value of the land, construction, and the improvements made to the property. So it's a little bit different, and the table is a little bit more complex. So we can send that to you and follow up to the webinar. But it's a very good and valid question.
Okay, we have one for Mexico. If a Mexican citizen, for a Mexican citizen, what's the financially safest way to obtain the residency? Friendly countries or investors? And the answer for this one is definitely the easiest way would be using the Friendly Nations Treaty.
For sure. For sure.
Okay, so let me see here. We're receiving more questions. So we have one, if my country is not in the Friendly Nations list, can I still apply for a Friendly Nations visa? And the answer, unfortunately, is no, you cannot apply through that program, but you may apply through another one of the programs that Karina presented. We can review that case and see what options does your client have. Okay, so I think we covered all the questions and we're right on time. So thanks everybody again for your participation. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. Once again, I ask you to please complete the survey at the end of this presentation when you finish and when you exit the webinar. We're very interested in continuing with this type of presentation, and we want to make sure that they really add value to you. I can say we have already offered other webinars in Spanish. So also if you're interested in Spanish webinars, if you also speak Spanish, please let us know as well. We have had webinars on business transformation in times of change, accounting records requirements in the BVI, Panama, Nevis, Belize, and Barbados. We talked also about economic substance in the BVI, about how to plan and use strategies to plan for business scenarios post the COVID crisis. this one about residencies, and we're planning our next series of webinars. So your feedback for this is very, very important for us. Once again, thanks for participating. If you are left with any unanswered questions, or you can think of any other questions, please send them to us via email, and we will make sure to get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.